Who's in there with you? The hushed feminine voice jolted me from my thoughts. I froze in the hallway, my hand on the doorknob to our spare bedroom, the one Carter had converted into his studio for a new work project. Carter's muffled response made my heart pound. Keep your voice down. Lena's home. My stomach twisted into knots. I pressed my ear against the door, straining to make out the words. Can't keep lying to her, the woman whispered. It's not fair. Not fair? Who was this woman, and why was she alone with my husband behind a locked door? Carter's reply made my blood run cold. Just a little longer, babe. Let me figure out how to handle this. Babe? Did he just call her babe? White-hot rage flooded my veins as realization struck me like a truck. My husband, my Carter of 11 years, was having an affair. With who? And for how long? I backed away from the door, my heart pounding as I rushed to the living room and sank into the couch. Tears burned in my eyes as I replayed the overheard conversation. The lies, the secrecy, the endearments, it all made sickening sense now. How could this be happening? We had the perfect life. Carter's software career paid well, allowing me to open my dream boutique in our idyllic little town. We hosted barbecues, belonged to book clubs, the whole suburban dream. Sure, we hit a dry spell after deciding kids weren't for us, but we still loved each other, right? Anger quickly displaced the hurt. This was a knife to the back from the man I trusted most. Carter betrayed me. Our marriage vows, our perfect life. All for what? A cheap thrill? No. I wouldn't go down as the clueless wife while he flaunted his infidelity. Squaring my shoulders, I began formulating a plan to catch him red-handed, to expose his lies and force him to face the consequences. This weekend, we were hosting our annual neighborhood dinner party. The whole community would be there. Friends, Carter's coworkers, my family. Perfect timing to bring this facade crashing down. My heart raced as I envisioned it all unfolding. Our dinner guests merrily sipping wine, when suddenly I'd burst into that room, revealing Carter's tawdry affair for all to see. The shock on his face as the illusion shattered, forced to confront his sins in front of everyone. A delicious sense of rage and vindication washed over me. My anger would be justified, his humiliation absolute. The perfect karmic reversal for his crimes against me. A noise from the hallway snapped me back to the present moment. My gaze landed on the studio door, still firmly shut. I had 4 days until the dinner party to gather all the proof I needed. Carter would soon learn that while he held the power to demolish everything I held dear, I now had the power to demolish him. And I wouldn't stop until he paid a reckoning. Over the next few days, I watched Carter with hawk-like scrutiny, seeking any shred of evidence to confirm my suspicions. My once rose-tinted view of our marriage had shattered, the illusion of our perfect life lying in irreparable pieces around me. Carter maintained an aura of feigned normalcy, but I caught the little things, his phone constantly buzzing with texts he tried to hide, the suspicious hours he spent holed up in his studio. I noticed lingering perfume scents when he came home late from work, a brand I didn't recognize. Monday night, we settled in to watch a movie as usual. I pressed into his side, desperate to feel that old spark of intimacy and connection. But his arm lay stiffly around me, his gaze constantly flickering to his phone. "Who keeps texting you?" I asked, unable to mask the accusatory tone. Carter startled, quickly thumbing his phone dark. "Oh, just some work stuff. No big deal. At 9 o'clock on a Monday?" He shrugged, not meeting my eyes. "Software developers stay plugged in round the clock, babe. You know that?" There was that casual endearment again, the same one he'd used with his mistress. A bitter bile rose in my throat, and I pulled away from his embrace. "Don't babe me, Carter," I snapped. "I'm your wife, not some girl you're trying to charm." His head whipped towards me, eyes wide with surprise at my sudden hostility. "Where's this coming from?" he asked, trying to gather his composure. "What's gotten into you lately?" I opened my mouth, every biting remark and accusation poised on the tip of my tongue. But his phone buzzed again, and the words died on my lips as fury gripped me once more. "You know what?" I seethed, rising abruptly from the couch. "I can't do this right now. I'm going out." "Lena, wait." But I stormed from the room, snatching my purse and keys on the way out. I needed space to breathe, to process the cyclone of emotions ripping me apart inside. The anger, the hurt, the urge to lash out, and him scream every vile thing I'd witnessed. I found myself in front of Maya's place, my best friend pulling open the door with a look of surprise. One glance at my face told her everything, and she quickly ushered me inside with a sympathetic embrace. Over glasses of wine, I recounted my suspicions about Carter's affair, the overheard conversation, the strange hours, the obvious deceptions. Maya listened without judgment, her warm demeanor providing a balm to my turmoiled soul. "You have to confront him," she stated firmly when I finished. "Make him admit to what he's done." I shook my head, downing the rest of my wine. "I can't, not until I have proof I can throw in his smug, lying face when the time is right." Maya's eyes widened, but she gave a slow nod of acceptance. "What did you have in mind?" A slow smile spread across my lips as the first tendrils of my plan began taking shape. "Let's just say Carter's going to receive a very public comeuppance." The next morning, I awoke with a pounding headache but steely resolve. Maya's words echoed in my mind. Confront him. Make him admit it. I needed undeniable proof of Carter's infidelity to expose his lies once and for all. I spent the day scouring our house like a detective, searching for any shred of evidence while Carter was at work. My frustration mounted as the hours ticked by empty-handed. He was too careful, too calculating in his deceit. My brief elation came that evening when I found his laptop open, a browser window still displaying his email inbox. Bingo. I scrolled through the messages, my breath catching at the obvious signs of an affair. Emails to hotel reservation desks for romantic getaways, online receipts for expensive jewelry, the type you buy for someone you're romancing, not your wife. My heart pounded as I hit pay dirt. Email exchanges with a Jenna discussing their next rendezvous, filled with sickening pleasantries and innuendo. My vision blurred with rage-filled tears. This Jenna was the woman from the studio, the one he called Babe. She worked with him, according to the emails. Some younger, petite redhead who caught his wandering eye. The laptop clattered to the table as I jolted upright. Carter's car rumbled into the driveway, the sound of his arrival slicing through my haze of anger. I hastily wiped my eyes and took a steadying breath as the front door opened. "Hey babe, I'm home," he called in a disgustingly jovial tone. I rounded the corner, fixing him with my most indignant glare. "Don't you, babe?" "Me, you piece of shit," I cedeled, my voice dripping with venom. Carter stopped short, his easy smile melting in an instant. "Whoa, what's going on?" "What's going on?" I laughed bitterly, gesturing to his laptop. "How about you tell me, Carter, who's Jenna?" If I had any doubts before, his pasty, clammy expression confirmed it all. Panic flashed across his features as he struggled for an excuse. Any excuse. "Jenna, from the office? She's just... We're working on a big project together." "Save it," I cut him off, holding up a hand. "I saw the emails, the hotel receipts, the jewelry, everything. Your lies are over." Silence hung thick in the air as my venom-laced words washed over him. He opened and closed his mouth like a gasping fish, his eyes wild and desperate. Inwardly, I trembled with vindication. Finally, here it was, the sweet, satisfying confession of his betrayal laid bare. No more hiding, no more denials. He knew I possessed irrefutable proof. Carter suddenly straightened, his expression transitioning from panic to an oily calmness that sent chills down my spine. "Lena," he began in a dangerously low tone, "you don't understand. Don't even try explaining this away." I erupted, all semblance of control shattering. "How could you do this? To me, to us?" My anguished screams echoed through the living room as every ounce of pain and rage I'd bottled up came bursting forth in a torrent. Carter stood motionless, absorbing the deserved brunt of my fury as I raged and wept and shook with righteous fury. When my well ran dry, I fixed him with a cold, withering glare. "I want a divorce," I stated with finality, "and this Saturday our friends will know exactly why." Leaving him frozen in stupefied shock, I stormed out the front door, letting it slam behind me with decisive, punctuating thud. In the days leading up to the dinner party, the atmosphere in our home was thick with tension. Carter tried pleading, bargaining, even threatening legal action, but I was unmoved. My mind was laser-focused on one thing: demolishing the facade of our sham marriage in front of everyone. "You're making a huge mistake," he said through gritted teeth as I finished placing the centerpiece on the dining table. "When you go through with this, there's no taking it back." I turned and fixed him with an icy glare. "Like you didn't make a huge mistake sleeping with that little hussy Jenna?" Carter flinched, and I felt a surge of dark satisfaction at inflicting even a fraction of the pain he'd caused me. Shoving down any lingering guilt, I pressed on. You did this to our family, Carter, to our friends, our community, the life we built together. You think your affair is just going to blow over quietly? I let out a humorless laugh. You arrogant bastard. His jaw clenched as his eyes narrowed dangerously. Watch yourself, Lena. You have no idea what you're bringing down on us. Is that a threat? I challenged, lifting my chin defiantly. Because I'm not scared of you or your little office fling anymore. Carter opened his mouth but seemed to think better of it, snapping his jaw shut with an audible click. He threw his hands up in exasperated defeat. Fine, go ahead and make a scene like the unhinged psycho you've become, but don't say I didn't warn you. With that parting shot, he stormed out of the room, leaving me to fume in silence. My fury burned white hot. How dare he play the victim after his sickening betrayal? He's the one who shattered my reality and destroyed everything I held dear. If anyone was unhinged, it was him and his sick indiscretions. A light rap at the front door jolted me from my fuming thoughts. I swung it open to find my brother-in-law Ethan, cradling a pastry box from our favorite local bakery. Carb loading before the party tomorrow? He joked, handing me the box. I managed a tight smile, grateful for the brief distraction as I ushered him inside to the kitchen. We chatted about small-town gossip and caught up on family news as I plated the assortment of baked goods. So, Ethan ventured after a lull. You want to tell me what's really going on with you and my jackass brother? I froze, the plate slipping from my fingers and shattering on the tile floor. Ethan held up his hands in a placating gesture. Hey, I'm not blind. I've noticed the cold shoulders and awkward silences. Carter's moping around like someone shot his dog. He arched an inquisitive brow. All I'm saying is, if you need an ally in your corner tomorrow, I'm happy to play bad cop. A knowing look passed between us, and it was all I could do to hold back the tidal wave of emotion that threatened to burst free. Here was someone on my side, ready and willing to have my back against the smug snake I'd married. Sucking in a sharp breath, I looked him square in the eye. You might just get your chance at that. Make sure you've got a front row seat tomorrow night. Ethan's eyes widened fractionally, but he gave a solemn nod of understanding. Satisfied I had an unexpected ally, I set about my final preparations for the main event tomorrow, the reckoning Carter had devastating coming. The dining room was a warm glow of candlelight and lively chatter as our guests arrived. I plastered on my brightest hostess smile, embracing friends and making introductions as if this were any other neighborhood soiree. But my nerves were frayed taut as a wire, my heart jackhammering with the knowledge of what was to come. Every time the studio door came into view, righteous fury flared bright in my chest. Carter worked the room with his usual effortless charm, laughing and mingling as if he didn't have a scandalous secret clawing at the fragile seams of our life. I watched him accept congratulatory pats on the back from his colleagues, bile rising in my throat. They had no idea the depravity of the man they praised. The doorbell chimed, and my blood ran cold as Carter moved to answer it. There she was, the home-wrecking slut in a tight red dress, hanging on his arm with a salacious grin. Jenna, this is my wife Lena, Carter said with sickening nonchalance. I don't think you two have met. The redhead batted her heavily mascaraed eyes at me with mock innocence. Lena? Hi. Carter's told me so much about you. I'm one of his colleagues from work. My molars ground together as I rattled off some vacuous pleasantry in return, fighting the urge to slap the smug look off her face. How dare this bimbo prance around and act so coy? She knew exactly what kind of depraved affair she'd engaged in. Well, let me get you both something to drink, I chirped with transparent brightness, whisking them off towards the kitchen. My gaze landed on Maya, looking like she'd witnessed a train wreck with her jaw hanging open. I gave her a subtle shake of my head, a silent promise that this was only the opening act. Ethan sidled up beside me, mouth set in a grim line as he cast a dark look towards the kitchen. Want me to get things started? Not yet, I murmured back, willing my thrumming pulse to steady. Let them drink, mingle, get comfortable. I want an audience for the main event. He gave a curt nod and melted back into the crowd. I took a fortifying breath and slapped my simpering smile back into place. Over the next excruciating hour, I made my rounds engaged in vacuous small talk, all while the burning resentment inside me swelled to a roaring inferno. Every time I glimpsed Carter's arm draped casually around Jenna's waist, saw him whispering in her ear with shameless intimacy, my jaw clenched harder. Finally, the moment arrived in the form of Ethan loudly clearing his throat and tapping his beer bottle to get everyone's attention. "If I could have everyone's eyes for a minute," he announced, casting a meaningful look in my direction. "My lovely sister-in-law has an announcement she's been looking forward to making." A hush fell over the assembled guests, and dozens of eyes swiveled expectantly towards me. I felt Carter tense beside me, his pleasant mask slipping as nerves flickered across his features. This was it, the plunge into the proverbial cold water with no going back. Drawing myself up to my full height, I fixed the room with my most brilliant, venomous smile. "Thanks, Ethan. In fact, I do have a special announcement to make," I began, my words laced with sugary malice. "But first, I was wondering if Carter could show us all into the studio room. I believe we're all in for a revealing experience in there." A chorus of confused murmurs rippled through the crowd as I turned an expectant look on my slack-jawed husband. He stared back at me, his face draining of color as he registered the razor-sharp challenge in my gaze. "Well?" I prompted with an arched brow. "The big project you've been working on? We're all dying to see it." Jenna tried to sputter out some excuse, but I silenced her with a look of pure venom. All eyes were locked on Carter, awaiting his reaction with bated breath. The silence teetered on the precipice as his Adam's apple bobbed with a hard swallow. Then, no doubt sensing the hopelessness of further protest, he turned on his heel and started for the studio without a word. The quiet scuffle of chairs scooting back was the only sound as our guests rose uncertainly to follow his lead. I fell into step behind them all, back straight and chin held high in grim determination. The trap had been set. Now it was time to mercilessly spring it and unleash my wrath. A heavy silence hung in the air as our guests filed into the studio, their expressions ranging from morbid curiosity to dawning realization. Maya shot me a knowing look, while Ethan hovered at the periphery like a bodyguard, ready to spring into action. Carter stood in the center of the room, radiating discomfort and dread as all eyes turned towards him in bewildered anticipation. Even Jenna seemed to sense the shifting tide, her bravado faltering as she shrank into the shadows. "Well?" I prompted acidly after the pause stretched on too long. "This is your chance to finally come clean about this big project you've been so obsessively working on." My husband's jaw ticked as he struggled to maintain his rapidly fracturing composure. "Lena, I don't know what you think this is, but don't play dumb," I snapped, cutting off his protest with a sharp slice of my hand. "We both know exactly what this room is for, your sordid little sex den with your mistress." A collective gasp reverberated around the room as Carter flushed a mortified crimson. Jenna let out a soundless squeak of dismay, her hands flying to cover her ashen face. I drank in their humiliation, letting the moment stretch out deliciously before turning an icy glare on the assembled crowd. "That's right, my dear friends and neighbors," I announced, my voice dripping with disdain. "While we've all been fooled by Carter's upstanding family man facade, he's been carrying on an affair right under our noses, using our hard-earned money to wine and dine his little red-headed tramp on the side." The gasps and mutterings swelled as dozens of accusing eyes turned on the shamed pair. Carter opened and closed his mouth like a gasping fish, struggling for any coherent defense under my ruthless onslaught. You've gone insane," he finally choked out, but the words rang weak and unconvincing even to my own ears. Ethan stepped forward, his expression thunderous. "Don't try lying anymore, little brother. We have all the proof, the emails, hotel receipts, everything." "No," Jenna whimpered from her shadowy corner. "Carter, you said you were going to leave her. You promised." The accusation seemed to jolt him from his stupor as he wheeled on her with a look of pure, unbridled rage. "Don't try pinning this entirely on me, you home-wrecking whore," he spat with incredible vitriol. "You knew exactly what you were getting into from the start." An affronted hush fell over the assembled crowd, and I registered the shocked and sickened looks being exchanged all around. Even Maya and Ethan appeared taken aback by the vicious rawness suddenly unleashed. Sensing the situation spiraling rapidly out of control, I seized the moment to pivot. "You're both utterly repulsive," I announced in ringing tones, garnering everyone's attention once again. "But this has been a long time coming. We're through, Carter. I want a divorce. Away from your poison and your whore." Squaring my shoulders, I shot my seething husband one final death glare before turning on my heel to stalk out of the room. Ethan fell into step beside me as the tumult of shock and chaos erupted in our wake. Anguished protests from Jenna, Carter alternating between apoplectic rage and desperate pleading, clamorous voices raised in disbelief from the crowd. With a defiant lift of my chin, I refused to so much as glance back as I exited the studio and then our home, leaving the firestorm of consequences blazing in my wake. The righteous satisfaction sang through my veins with every step. I did it. I stripped away the deception and exposed the gruesome truth, publicly eviscerating my wretched husband and forcing him to face the cataclysmic results of his actions. He wanted his sordid affair and depraved thrills. He got them along with alienation from his friends, family, and entire life as he knew it. It was only what a monster like him deserved. As Ethan and I strode into the fading twilight, I felt a profound, soaring sense of liberation and renewal surging within me. The shackles of lies and emasculation were shattered. The dead weight of my disgraceful marriage sloughed off like a serpent's skin. For the first time in longer than I could remember, I was free. My soul found its breath again as I stood ready to embrace the journey of reclaiming myself, one emboldened step at a time. The next few weeks passed in a whirlwind of chaos. News of Carter's despicable affair detonated like a bombshell through our once tight-knit community. Suddenly, I found myself the soul-bearing protagonist at the center of a salacious scandal, the topic of hushed scrutiny and gossip wherever I went. Overnight, my husband became a social pariah, shunned from his usual haunts, disinvited from neighborhood gatherings, his workplace reputation in tatters. Jenna didn't fare much better, resigning from her job in disgrace after an onslaught of vicious harassment from disgusted coworkers. I, on the other hand, found myself buoyed by a groundswell of support and empathy. Friends and acquaintances rallied around me, offering shoulders to cry on or ears to vent as I navigated the painful process of divorce proceedings. Even strangers approached me with words of encouragement or shared stories of their own marital betrayals, tacitly commending my bold handling of the situation. Through it all, Carter remained unrepentant, alternating between bouts of self-pitying anger and hollow pleading for another chance. A few times he tried to corner me with bitter recriminations, but I simply stared through him with a hollow detachment that seemed to unnerve him more than any heated argument. One such confrontation played out in Maya's kitchen, where I'd been holed up escaping the gossip frenzy dominating my own home. He barged in unannounced, eyes wild and hair disheveled from another night of brooding self-destruction. "Are you happy now, Lena?" he slurred, a whiskey bottle sloshing in his trembling hand. "You got what you wanted. You ruined my life completely. Was your sick revenge really worth destroying everything we had?" Fighting the instinct to recoil from his whiskey-tinged belligerence, I simply arched an incredulous brow. "I destroyed everything we had? Are you delusional?" I scoffed with biting condescension. "I didn't lift a finger to bring this misery on us. You obliterated our marriage the second you stepped out on your vows with that gutter snipe, Jenna." Carter flinched as if struck, but I pressed on with ruthless dispassion. "Look at yourself. Drunk, disheveled, the town pariah, and you really think playing the victim now will earn you any sympathy?" I let out a withering laugh. "Face it, Carter. This is the aftermath you created by your own selfish, disgusting actions. You have no one to blame but yourself." A muscle ticked in his clenched jaw as my brutal words bored into him like sharpened stakes. For a fleeting moment, I caught a glimpse of the man I married, flickering in his defeated eyes, ashamed, regretful, realizing the gravity of his misdeeds. But the instant passed as quickly as it arose, smothered again by an avalanche of bitterness and denial. "You're one to talk about disgusting and selfish," he bit out in a gritty snarl. "The way you humiliated me in front of everyone, relished in tearing me down like that, you're just as bad as me, maybe even worse." My lips peeled back in a cold smile, entirely unfazed by his petulant lashing out. You're right, Carter. I did take a certain perverse satisfaction in exposing your deceit so publicly. In demolishing the philandering liar you revealed yourself to be in front of everyone who respects you. I pinned him with a look of crystalline contempt. But unlike your betrayal, mine was a justifiable act of vengeance against unforgivable crimes. You'll just have to find a way to live with the unvarnished truth of the pathetic snake you are. With that parting blow, I brushed past his towering form and exited the kitchen without a backwards glance. Carter's anguished roar of incoherent rage echoed behind me, but I felt nothing. No remorse, no fear, only an implacable sense of resolution. The man responsible for upending my life with his selfishness was ousted, leaving only the prospect of reclaiming my independence and sense of self-worth. After enduring his unfathomable betrayal, emerging on the other side felt remarkably undaunting. In fact, I strode forward with my head held high, energized by the prospect of unburdening myself from that wretched anchor of a marriage and rediscovering who I was without it weighing me down. Let the disgraced snake writhe and lash out in the ashes of the life he torched. I was too busy rising from those same ashes like a refined, emboldened phoenix carving an audacious new path. In the weeks that followed, I focused all my energy on regaining my sense of self and purpose. With the divorce proceedings underway, I was determined to reclaim the life Carter's betrayal had so violently derailed. The boutique was my first priority. I'd allowed it to drift onto the back burner amid the chaos and hurt, but now it would be my phoenix rising from the ashes of deception. With renewed zeal, I attacked the challenges that had stagnated it before, revamping inventory, implementing new marketing campaigns, reconnecting with my customer base. It was invigorating, empowering work. Every small success renewed my sense of independence and self-worth that Carter's infidelity had battered. No longer was I just the scorned wife at the center of a sordid scandal. I was a tenacious, resourceful businesswoman forging her own path. My friends rallied around me every step of the way, lifting my spirits with girls' nights and offering extra hands whenever I hit an obstacle. Maya was a grounding force, keeping me focused whenever I felt overwhelmed or started spiraling into anger over the cratered state of my marriage. Let that soon-to-be ex-snake wallow in his mess, she'd say whenever I vented about Carter's latest drunken tirade or attempt to beg for forgiveness. You're a damn phoenix, Lena. It's time to show this town what you're truly made of. Her words fueled me, becoming a mantra I clung to whenever self-doubt tried to creep in. No more would I be defined by my shattered marriage or the betrayal that turned my life upside down. I was taking my identity back piece by piece, rebuilding it from a stronger, more resilient foundation. Of course, Carter's pathetic, groveling attempts continued unabated, each one driving home the bullet I dodged by being rid of him. Once, he cornered me outside the boutique after close vodka fumes wafting off him in thick waves. "You've made your point, okay?" he slurred, desperation cracking his bravado. "I get it. I'm scum. I was weak. I threw it all away for a fling. But can't you see how much I regret it? How much I still love you?" I stared at him for a long beat, utterly unmoved as shame and pleas warred across his haggard features. "Are you serious right now?" I finally said, unable to mask the disdain in my voice. "You stroll up here half in the bag, expecting pretty words will undo the depraved, humiliating hell you put me through." His face contorted in anguish, but I pressed on with scathing contempt. "Wake up, Carter. Whatever twisted idea of love lives in that shriveled soul of yours is diseased, unrecognizable. Real love doesn't lie, cheat, and destroy everything it vowed to honor and protect." I shook my head slowly, mustering a last glimmer of pity for the husk of a man before me. "You have no one to blame for being here but yourself." Leaving him frozen on the sidewalk, I pivoted on my heel and strode away, heart swelling with self-possession and resolve. This was my path now, built on my own strength, beholden to no one's delusions or manipulation. The old Lena may have gotten lost in the rubble of my disastrous marriage, but she was long gone. In her place emerged a far más formidable woman, emboldened, self-assured, and wholly reauthored by the hardships she endured. I cut Carter's toxicity out like a cancer, emerging from the darkness of betrayal and into the radiant, empowered light of reinvention. With the boutique regaining its stride and my spirit renewed, I turned my focus back to my roots in the community. I rejoined civic organizations, attended neighborhood gatherings, reconnected with the myriad friendships and support system I'd allowed to lapse during my marital turmoil. At each turn, I was met with open arms, admiring words about my poise and resilience in the face of unthinkable heartbreak. What was once a source of pariah gossip had become a rallying inspiration. A woman who refused to be victimized, who rose up and reclaimed herself with valor and tenacity. Carter's frequent, increasingly desperate attempts to win me back after flaming out were met with polite but steely indifference. I was a woman reimagined, reinvented. The Lena he shattered was reborn into a sovereign force, answering to no one's script but her own. And as that sovereign spirit continued blossoming with each invigorated breath, my horizons stretched out limitless and ripe for the taking. Whatever lay ahead, I would seize it by the reins with both hands and all the brilliantly uncompromised strength I reclaimed.